Great to be here. I'm one of two partners at MediaCurrent. We have 14 employees based in, again, Atlanta, mostly a remote team, primarily in the Southeast. Some of our bigger clients include the Miami Dolphins of the NFL, Autotrader.com, and the University of Georgia. So I've been asked to kind of tee things off on recruiting and why it's so important. I would look no further than, I don't know if all of you notice, Dries did a blog post last week where he does sort of a retrospective, talks about the last year, and he talks about what the biggest challenges are to Drupal in the upcoming year. And he pointed out that he feels like the single biggest challenge facing the community as well as his company, Acquia, is the ability to recruit and find new blood into the community, into shops, into organizations. So look no further than Dries himself to underscore the importance of recruiting and finding new talent in your organization. Drupal, as you probably heard in Kieran's keynote, has an interesting dynamic. Unlike a lot of other industries, we have negative unemployment in Drupal. The last few years have consistently seen greater demand and less supply. And that's been a big challenge for all of us as we've tried to organically grow our companies. In terms of how you find new talent, how you recruit, how you source, I'd first encourage you to not have a defeatist attitude. It can be done. A lot of folks just immediately think that it's impossible to find experienced help in their organization, and that's simply not true. A lot of what I see is sort of a catcher's mitt syndrome. Somebody will go and post one job on groups.drupal.org or on monster.com, and they'll wait for resumes to come to them. That's the wrong approach. You have to treat recruiting like you do a project. You have to have a plan. You have to attack it with a full head of steam. If all of you aren't incorporating 5 hours a week into networking, into your schedule, you should be. I don't have a magic potion. There is no silver bullet. I don't have a honey hole where I can go to tell you, go to this site. There's 50 Drupal developers that hang out there, and you probably can hire one of them. You have to diversify your strategy. I only have 5 minutes, so I'll tell you the number one lead source for finding new talent for us has always been referrals, and it's reaching out to partners, finding out where they're finding folks. It's doing a lot of networking. Work your referral network is the best nugget I can give you in terms of sourcing. How do you know if the person is the right fit? Interviewing, I am going to make an assumption that most of you can screen whether or not somebody has enough technical chops to handle working on the Drupal platform. I would encourage you to go a different path and look for somebody who has ambition. Ambition is the number one character trait that I look for in a new employee. It's something I don't feel like I can really teach somebody. And if you look at the common denominator to a lot of the top contributors in Drupal, they all have sort of that soft skill. They don't need to be told to go to a meetup. They look forward to coming to camps and cons and getting involved in the community. So look for ambition if you are hiring. In terms of screening candidates, again, treat it like you would anything else. Have a very defined, consistent process. Resist hiring on intuition. Resist hiring because somebody they just look like a programmer. Don't do that. Resist hiring somebody because a trusted employee referred them. That's going to be a huge factor, but don't compromise your process. So you have to have a process, and you still have to run that person through your system like you would anybody else. So I'd also encourage you to do take background checking seriously. In Drupal, there's some great tools out there. Certified to Rock, there is, of course, just checking somebody's Drupal.org ID. There is references, and don't not call references. I know a lot of the perception is it's not worth it because if somebody listed a reference, they're obviously going to give them a lot of compliments. Don't make that assumption. You know, you'll be surprised if you can especially talk to their supervisors, direct reports. If you can talk to actual customers, you'll usually get a pretty transparent response in a lot of cases. But reference checking certainly should be part of your screening process. I'll end with just saying, after you get done screening somebody and you've trusted your kind of gut feeling and you feel like they're a good fit for your organization, make a positive first impression. I think all of you have probably worked at a job where you've gone the first day and nothing was ready, no computer was set up, you didn't have business. That's reflective of your company. So make sure you have a new hire checklist, get everything set up from day one. It will go a long way. And I'm going to now turn things over to, now that you've hired somebody, how you retain them and grow them, to Glen.
Thanks. So my name is Glen Hiltin. I am the president of ImageX Media. We're based up in Canada, in Vancouver, and it's great to be here with all of you. I'm sure that there's people from all over the place here, and also people who are here from different backgrounds and different positions in terms of Drupal. I'm sure there's some here that are independent. I met an individual from Las Vegas here just a few moments ago. It was a one-man shop, and I'm sure there's probably some small shops here too. Some of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you may not directly apply to you right now where you're at, but I think if you take some of the things that Dave's just been sharing and really apply it as groundwork, you may be in a place, a bit closer? Yeah. Okay. You may be at a place where you eventually will really be able to benefit from that groundwork. So what I'd like to talk a little bit about is retention. And I don't know, when you think about retention, I often think about salaries. I think about making sure you pay your people really well. And that is definitely an important part of keeping your team around, but it's not the only facet. So what I want to share is a few of the things that I think are really important to people on why they'd want to stick with a company. Obviously, paying them, as I said, well is good, but there's other things too. Things like treating them well, being a part of a team where they can really feel like they can benefit, that they can contribute, being a part of something bigger than themselves, something that they can help build, and being in an organization that will respect them and see their desire to grow, to learn, and to be able to get behind them and really help them to make those steps forward in their career. That's important to people. And so in our organization, that's one of the things that we really want to try to do, is identify and listen to our people and hear some of the things that they want to do and then to get behind them. Each year we try to meet at the start of the year and we look at a few things that are really important to us. And I think every organization needs to stop and ask themselves a few questions. What is it that we value? Where do we want to go as an organization? And what do we want to be known for? I think those three things really help the people in the organization feel like they know that they're a part of something that they can impact, that they can have a say on. And as you begin to gather that information from your team, you can begin to set goals together and begin to lay out a path for them that they can really see progress is being made in a company. I don't know if you've ever been in a job before where you feel maybe you have some ideas or you see some things in the company that definitely need to change and you feel that it's hurting the company, or maybe it's even hurting you in your position in the company, but you try to express things to the management and it just goes nowhere. Maybe you have some things you want to do in terms of your career path, in terms of development, and you express those things and they say, yeah, we'll do that. And nothing ever happens of it. There's no process, there's no timeline that's been set out for you to be able to see that there's steps put in place so that you can make a positive move forward in your career path, or that you can move up in the company. And so those are some of the things that we try to identify with each of our team members. We meet with them on a regular basis. Each one of our team members, every 6 months, we have a sit down with them where we'll review how they're doing in their job. We'll look at their goals and we'll look at their progress, and then we'll begin to make decisions with them on how they can make the next step in the company, and how they can also increase their pay, and how we can incentivize them. Some of the other things we'll do together corporately is begin to try to motivate the people to do things that really matter to all of us. One of the things that our group identified in our company that was very important to them was innovation. They wanted to be a company that was known for innovation. So each quarter we incentivize our team by saying the person who shows the most innovation in this company, we're going to give them an iPad. And so for the last year, each quarter, we've given out an iPad, and that's been hugely an incentive for our team. We want to see them getting involved in the community. That's another priority for them. So we've made steps forward in our company to say, okay, we kind of done the metrics. We know what it's going to take to be profitable. We need each of our developers to be able to put in 75% of your time billable. But the work you do on top of that, if you see some areas in the community that you want to get involved, or if there's some things that you want to develop or modules that you want to create, go for it. And we want to help get behind you to do that. Another thing we did is created a thing which we'd heard another organization had done over in Australia. It's called FedEx Day. And basically what they did is at 10 o'clock on a Monday morning, they sat the whole team down and they said to them, guys, we're going to give you the next 24 hours to work on anything you want to work on, and by the next day at 10 o'clock in the morning, you have to deliver something to show us all what you've built. You can build anything you want. It could be for the company, it could be something to better this organization, or it could be for the community. So we tried that out last fall, and it was a fantastic day for our team to get together and to really pool their ideas together, to get into small teams and to build things together, and to get some things that some of them were only able to get, initially a start, but they're still working on those things. And what we want to try to foster in our team is a sense of it's important to give back. It's not just all about us making a lot of money, it's about us helping in a bigger picture. And so as we started to do this together, our team is beginning to catch the vision of what they can do. So those are a few things that I'd like to share with you that have helped our team to be able to feel like they're part of something that matters, an organization that they're proud of, and something that they can help in developing their personal goals. Later this afternoon, I'll be working with Dave to share a little bit more in detail of some of the things that we can do to further help our team strengthen in their abilities as developers, and also to build that community. So I'm going to wrap up now because I think I've exceeded my time, but I'll put it over to Drew.
Thank you. How's that for volume? So I'm Drew Gorton. I run Gorton Studios based up in Minneapolis, and I'm delighted to be here for the change in weather, if nothing else. Pretty nice upgrade. So I'm talking about process, and I started my company 10 years ago, and actually to this month, actually, it's got to be close to the day. Should probably track that better, but at the time, if I had known that I was going to be talking about process, that would have blown my mind. I was very much about results. I was very against doing things like tracking time and doing things like that. I really just wanted to provide value for the people I was working with and for. And at the same time, I always wanted to make sure I learned from my mistakes. And when you owe it to yourself when you do something to look back and say what went well and what didn't go well. And now I understand that as process. And actually, and so that's the heart of what process. Process is just going back and saying, what have I done? What have I done well? What have I not done well? And making steps to improve those things. In fact, actually, just right now, Dave just mentioned a new hire checklist and how that reflects on your company. That's process. And I just turned to Mike and I said, oh man, I failed at that. That's something I've done badly before. And that's something that we need to improve. And actually, what Glen was just talking about with retention, which is the ability for somebody to see in your organization something and say, I need to make, or I have an idea, I think this is going to make it better. If you can empower your people to do that, that's what process is. That they can make the suggestion, and then they can see that the thing that they suggested is actually going to be implemented because everyone understands it makes the whole organization better. So yeah, it's all about process. These guys, anyways. So humans make mistakes. If we can give them safety nets, that makes quality higher. It makes people more confident in the work they're doing. It makes people more confident and assured. It also builds teams and such. So if you have a process that, before something goes to the client, for example, coworkers check it. That will actually make people make probably fewer mistakes and also increase their confidence and speed and ability to do work because they know that they've got somebody there helping support them in getting their work done. And when then you do have a failure, you have a chance for a strengthening of the bonds in your team because somebody says, oh, I noticed this one thing, we better fix that before it goes out. And it's a powerful, powerful, powerful tool. Failures, heard a talk recently, and somebody said something really interesting, which I really liked, which was that failures indicate that someone didn't follow a good process or someone followed a bad process. So anytime there's a failure anywhere, that's right there. Either it's a bad process or someone didn't follow a good process. If you can work out those two things, you can realize, all right, do I have to talk to the person? I mean, never make the person, doesn't always mean there's a personnel problem, but recognizing that's a really simple, I don't know, I heard that and it really struck a chord for me. Another thing that process does for you is profits. And again, 10 years ago, if I'd known that I was going to be talking about profits and extolling their virtues, that might have also blown my mind a little bit. But in the end of the day, it's the same kind of thing. It's quality. If we're all trying to produce value for the people that we work with. And if it takes us 1,000 hours to produce value, and 5 years later we're able to do that achieve that same amount of value for 500 hours, that's actually a really remarkable improvement. And that's something we should all be striving for. And at the end of the day, the client probably should only be paying for the value, not what it takes to get there. So profits are, the stock market sort of turned profits into the final measuring tool for any company. And I think that's maybe distorted a little bit, but at the same time, I think it's actually a really good measuring tool. If you don't have profits as a business, you probably don't have the right things going on. It means that your process, you're not asking yourself where you're failing and trying to get better. So it's also actually an interesting thing to note that if you have excess time and or money, in terms of profitability, investing in your own internal processes is the most valuable, will give you the biggest bang for the buck in improving your profits. So versus advertising or marketing or something, putting together, we've got a booth, we've got stickers, right? That costs money to do. It takes time to design the stickers and do things like that. If you invest the time, and those things are necessary. Mark's going to talk about marketing, actually. But if you take that time and invest it evenly, include process, how do we make improvements? How do we make ourselves better? Those things affect your bottom line and your people's happiness and your ability to get new people in dramatic ways. It just occurred to me, I don't know that I actually clicked start on my time. I guess I'm unlimited. Sorry, I'm guessing I'm pretty close, yeah.
Feels like it.
Yeah. I'm going to say that a process is more important than the process. So someone else's process might be interesting to you. You might be able to glean something from it. But it's really about your organization, talking with the people, because you work with human beings, talking with those human beings about what's working well for them and what's not, and adjusting accordingly and using the strengths of all those people. So we have a process that we follow, and it's posted up online up there. There's borrow anything that looks useful, please, and post back the improvements, please. But that's something. The link that's being shown is something that's about 2 years old, and if I really truly thought that was the pinnacle of process, that would just be the most ridiculous thing ever. It's 2 years old. We've got 2 years smarter people, 2 years smarter in projects and such. And so you'll never achieve perfection in anything, but always strive to get better. And that's really just what process is.
Great. Thanks, Drew. Hey, so I am Mike, and I'll be talking about marketing. And because of the power of marketing, I don't even need to tell you what company I work for. You know. That's marketing, right? No, for real. We are going to talk about marketing because small companies, big companies, all take different approaches to marketing. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions to marketing is what it isn't, right? So marketing is not sales. It's not. It leads to sales, and it actually, in the Drupal space, I can say from experience, it really does a great job of almost replacing sales because of the fact that if you're really strong at marketing, people are going to find you. They're going to come to you. So marketing isn't sales. Marketing isn't about telling people stuff that you want to convince them about yourself. It's about telling your true story, something authentic, and really letting them in to your story. That's more what marketing is. I realized I jumped in a minute. So my company is Treehouse Agency, and we are a 15-person distributed company, mainly in the New York City area. Cater to a lot of New York City clients, big media, and some government, but mainly doing large.
Your time's up.
Excellent, excellent. Mainly doing large, large multi-month, multi-developer engagements. Okay, so I will try to get through it a little faster, I guess, if Ron's pushing me. Do your homework, right? You don't need to have an MBA to understand marketing. I don't, I have a VP of marketing who does have an MBA, but I don't, and she often relies on me to help with big marketing decisions. So, 3 C's, though, there are some good things that come from the education side. The 3 C's, if you don't know about them, they are important. Look it up. It's really looking at your company and knowing yourself, your strengths and weaknesses, your customers, obviously extremely important. What do they want? What do they need? And how do you fill that? How do you answer that? And then really your competitors, and I'm glad to say in the Drupal space, that actually includes another C, which is your colleagues. I greatly respect everyone on this board, but I'd be lying if they're not both colleagues and competitors. They are. And myself and my VP of marketing look really hard at their companies to understand what their strengths and weaknesses are, because again, that's gonna help differentiate us and really make our market presence that much stronger. So let's see, internal marketing, relationships and partnerships. Obviously, internal marketing, what I'm talking about there really is, as an owner, again, whether you're a 2-person shop or a lot bigger, your story, again, although it's critically important, if you don't share that story with your other team members, it's useless. They're your best brand advocates, your internal team members. They need to know your story. They need to understand what you guys are all about and what you stand for, again, to Glen's point, values, And so having them behind you and going out, and I'll talk about this when we talk about tools, but in conferences, they're going to be telling your story on blogs, etc. So internal marketing, really get behind the people on your team and get them to be talking about things that that represent you. Relationships and partnerships is easy. It's something you can think a lot about in simple terms, and I'm not just saying this. It's true. Relationships, I think for most people here, certainly for us, relationships, if I had to kind of pin one thing on the success of Treehouse up to this point, it's our relationships. They are so important to every aspect of your business. So again, just forge those relationships and then leverage them as best you can. Tools, there's a ton of tools. I don't need to tell you guys, about, where the tools are all around us right now with Twitter and obviously blogging, but these are really important things. The main takeaway is you want to have, again, your team members and yourself out there, visible, in front of people, whether it's at camps, conferences like this. That's obviously the best, face-to-face. Dave does a good job at MediaCurrent. His team puts out white papers, also important. Write books if you can. That's great. But then even lower level stuff, like your blogs. That's been one of the biggest things for us is we make now a concerted effort to really be pushing a lot of blog posts out because that's, you're not always a topic matter expert, but you'd be surprised to see how much people care about what your team members have to say, and yourself actually too. So blogging is really important. And then obviously analytics, that's a tool too. The analytics around that is very important. You do have the capacity now to be able to see Google Analytics free, Bitly, and have people pushing to you. It's all free. Well, for the most part, it's free. Get out there and be kind of measuring, really what are the metrics around this internal marketing spend that we have? What is the return on investment? It's actually, you'd be surprised at how easy it is to kind of see that. And then the last thing, just to finish up, really is just some creative ideas to really get noticed and to market. We do a lot at Treehouse, and it's why Ron kind of picked us as this. But basically, there's a number of things you could do. One is get involved. Kieran spoke a lot in the keynote about the 360-something or whatever it was parties. We were involved in the New York City party to help kind of throw that with GVS and a couple of other shops in the New York City area. And that's a great way to market yourself and get out there. Some other ways is kind of get creative for us, for those that were in DrupalCon DC, and for those that will be in DrupalCon Chicago. We have a fun little thing. We have these tree blocks that people still to this day are like, oh, because we did it in DC, 2 years ago. They're like, when are you going to bring the tree blocks back? Does tree blocks tell anyone that we're good developers? No, it doesn't. But they remember us. And then this year, another kind of interesting, just creative thing is the holiday gifts. Get creative there. You want to brand your holiday gifts, not too strongly, because you don't want to be kind of obnoxious, but there's a lot of ways to kind of get creative around your brand and stay noticed. So, and I recommend doing it because, again, I spend more on marketing, much more, than I do on sales and business development, and it's worked out pretty good for us.
So my name's Jeff Walpole. I'm CEO and one of the founders of Phase 2 Technology. We're Washington, D.C. based Drupal company. We're a 40-person shop, and we're almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years this year. So do a lot in the publishing space. We work with people like Thomson Reuters and build a lot of online publishing sites, newspapers, magazines. In the government space, we developed the White House site, whitehouse.gov, and the congressional sites that Kieran mentioned this morning in the keynote. And in the advocacy and nonprofit space, we've worked with people like the UN, World Bank, people like that. So what I was going to talk about is something that we were thinking about putting first and we decided to put last. And I guess you can sort of think of all these things as not really having maybe a linear point in your development of your business because they're obviously all critical and they happen at different times. But the idea of sort of putting strategy and standing out last is all these things sort of build from one another. And once you have a team in place and you sort of have people on board and you have your marketing, you have some clients, you have some processes, you really have to do one of the most important things for your business, and that's set a direction and figure out where you're headed, who you are, and how you stand apart from the crowd. The reason I put this picture, which I didn't think was going to be behind our heads, up there is that's a picture of everybody, the sort of the group picture that we did in San Diego for DrupalCon. And the reason I put it up there is because I wanted you to think about the fact that when we started in DC 3 years ago, the DC DrupalCon had sort of doubled from Boston, and it was 1,500 people, and it was like, we can't believe there's 1,500 people at DrupalCon. It's amazing. And then you have San Francisco, we had 3,000, and then you have Chicago, we're going to have 4,000. I'm sure my numbers are not exact, but the idea is that this community is getting larger and larger every day, and there's people coming into it. And so, especially as small providers, you have to ask yourself a really important question, and that's, how do you stand out? Who are you, and how do you make yourself different from everybody else? Because we don't think of our businesses necessarily as being a commodity. but the customer does. The customer looks at you guys and says, okay, you're little shop 1, you're little shop 2, and you're little shop 3. And you know what? For that part, all of us up here are little shops too. There are no giants in this space right now. There will be, and we have to think about that. So, one of the questions I'm just curious about is, think about, do you have a defined strategy? Do you know what's uniquely different about your company? Do you focus on something? Do you channel certain types of work? Do you focus on getting certain types of work? Because there's thousands of providers out there, and really, if you don't do that, they're going to have a niche, and they're going to conquer you by having their own niche. So the idea that I have is really everybody, regardless of whether you're a one-person company or a 10,000-person company, if you're in the services industry, you have to have a niche. You have to have a way to be unique. And so one of those things that I like to look at is, kind of, does it have to be a specific sort of predefined way of looking at a niche? No, it doesn't. You guys, it's part of your culture, and you can pick and choose from various ways to differentiate your services. An example would be, by talent. Do you have, very innovative, very creative type people? Do you have better people who are better at process, project management, those types of things? That's a way to differentiate yourself. Build that into your marketing, build it into your hiring, build it into your processes, and sort of instill that into your culture so that that becomes your comparative advantage. And when you go talk to people, you can stand out from other people by saying, that's something we're good at. We're a very creative firm, Another thing would be look at it like maybe by industry. We've done that a lot in my company. When I was explaining to you who my company was, I explained to you the verticals that we work in. And the reason I explained it to you was not just to name drop the customers. It was to actually get you to associate us with those types of work. So, when you're thinking about, maybe the government adopting Drupal, you're going to think about phase 2, and you're going to say, okay, that's something that they're willing to announce up front. We concentrate on this. We focus on this. And I might pass on, I don't know, Hasbro or McDonald's or Nike or something that, I probably wouldn't. Now I'm lying. But the point is that, those are brands that, are very attractive to a lot of people because you think, oh, there's a lot of money there. But the reality is that, it's not part of our DNA. We have sort of policy. That couldn't have been my timer. Very policy-oriented people, and we're in DC, so there's another thing. So there's sort of a geographical focus, and you start to overlay these sort of areas of expertise, and you come up with really a culture and a niche, and you can work that into your marketing. You can work it into every aspect of what you do. Another thing is really looking at it, say, by service. I think a lot of people out here, when you're starting a company, you define yourself by being sort of either a design company, a creative agency that uses Drupal, or maybe you're more of a technology company and you're building, CMS solutions and modules and, things like that. So instilling those and knowing what you're good at is important, and that really drives me to the next one, which is it's really, really, really important that you figure out what you're good at. Trying to be good at everything is a really bad strategy. It's just not attainable, and it doesn't help you stand out against other people. What it does is it blurs you in with the crowd. If you say things like, "Oh, we're a full-service agency," I mean, you know how many people are sitting out there today saying we're a full-service agency? What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything unique, nothing specific to a customer. So figure out what you're good at, like what you're specifically good at, and I don't mean what you want to be good at. I mean, it sounds great to be, we're great themers, but if you're really not great themers, just be honest. Just do what you're good at and think about that, because really, in the end, that's going to, again, help you stand out, but it's also going to drive you towards the type of work that you're naturally fit for, which means you'll do a better job, you'll get more referrals, and you'll be happier about it. So I think that's really important. So talking about work and specific work that you focus on, I think a huge mistake, something that we see a lot when we've talked to people in these panels is they go out, and people go out and they look at it in terms of money and profit and costs and dollars and hours, and they talk in these terms, and they don't do a good job of really focusing on the value that you're delivering to a customer and thinking a lot more about sort of what is the exact thing that customer's hired you for, and how do you focus and recast that conversation around the thing that you're providing and not about the money that you're charging while you're doing it. It's an enormously powerful tool for ensuring, again, that you're working with the right customers and that those customers actually appreciate what you're delivering to them, instead of just thinking of you as someone who, flipped the sand glass over on their desk and is just billing by the hour while you're there. So again, you tie all that back and you say, let's make an example. So let's say, one of your things is you're really creative. You have a very creative team. You sold them up front in your marketing on that. You hired the right people who are very creative. You focused on only going after creative type work. And then when you got in there, you essentially delivered a solution that just completely blew them away at how creative and different it was than what they were thinking. That is a really powerful relationship with that client, because you establish continuity between what you said in the market, what you were aligned to do, and then you actually delivered, or hopefully over-delivered on that. That's not a disputed bill. Everyone asks, everyone's nickel and diming my bills. Well, that's probably because you're working with the wrong people, the wrong kind of work, and you might have sold the whole job wrong. You might not be focused on the right things. So, the last thing I would tie into that same concept is, in the Drupal community, we have a lot of powerful tools in our hands, perhaps too many for most customers. And so the other sort of, I think, differentiator that you can do is, don't talk about like the module you're going to install for a customer. Don't talk about like, I'm going to use the Zen theme and I'm going to configure views in CCK to do this, and then I'm going to install the Facebook Connect module. Really? I mean, why are you telling them all that? Like, do you have that kind of conversation with your electrician or your home builder? I mean, I'm going to use an A joint to, put this together, and then, this kind of nail, and, really, I mean, what you need to be thinking about is solutions, not modules. So, like, one thing my company has done, and I think really driven a lot of this sort of movement in the community around is around distribution. So, we sold a lot of publishing sites and did a lot of publishing work before we realized we were doing the same thing over and over again, and the customers just didn't care about the details. So we packaged up all the modules, all the content types, a basic view and a basic theme, and a couple of third-party libraries and all that into a distribution. And we called it Open Publish, and we said, yeah, it's Drupal. We're not trying to pass it off as being anything but Drupal, but if you're a publisher, this is what you care about. You want to know that you have workflow. You want to know that you have this kind of publishing stuff. You want to know that you can, integrate with your Twitter feed. You want to do this, you want to do that, you want to do this and that. Rather than saying, here's Drupal, and here's some really generic things about Drupal that you don't understand that make it good, and why I, as a developer, want to use it, and then we're going to weed through 7,000 modules and talk about that. It's just silly. What customers want is that solution at the end of the day, not those details. So, and then the last thing I would say is, as people who are in this community trying to stand out and are using this fantastic tool set that everyone's building around you, think about the value of sort of giving back to that too and contributing what you've done. Again, a very good way to stand out, and a very good way in about a year or 2 years to tell, who's a user in this community and who's an actual participant in this community, is by what people contribute. It starts with like what Dave said. We don't hire anybody in our company without checking their Drupal.org, name. No way. We're going to look at every conversations you had in the community. We're going to look at every patch. We're going to look at every module. And you know what? If I'm hiring someone specific to Drupal and they say they're a great Drupal developer, but they don't have those quals on the site, I'm going to second guess them. Now, that's not to say that, by the way, our hiring tactic is just to hire Drupal developers. We'll bring people in from outside, but it's a good example of how you got to walk the walk, and not just talk the talk. And you're going to have to find ways to, as a company or as an individual or as a consultant, if you really want people to trust that you have credibility in Drupal, you have to be involved in sort of that community. And it's so true. Like in open source, it's one of those things where you really get what you put in. You get that much out. So just inspire you to, when you come back around in this open source world to some of the things you're doing with your strategy, make sure that when you're being transparent about who you are and what you're doing and what you want to do, that you bring it all back around to, in essence, a way to give that back to the community, so that as a whole, you stand out because you've done something that's unique and different and makes you different than the other providers. So.
All right, most everybody's still awake, right? Okay. Let me get through this real quick because it's probably not real relevant to everybody, and then we'll open it up for questions here real quick. But one of the things that we're all very interested in up here is moving Drupal forward. And one of the reasons why we give this panel is because for you all to succeed, as Jeff always says, you know, rising tides raise all ships. So we want to see you all succeed as well, and believe it or not, that helps us succeed. One of the things we're doing is, as a group, we've gotten together and asked the Drupal Association to do a CEO day for DrupalCon, and they did grant it. We were really surprised and happy about it. So on Monday, before DrupalCon, we're going to do the CXO exchange. We're going to have some top-notch speakers. We're going to have some open discussions about where's Drupal going, how to run shops, how to grow your companies, some best practices, and et cetera. So if anybody's going to DrupalCon or thinking about going to DrupalCon, this would be, and you run a company, this would be a great event to get out to and show up to. We're just putting the final touches on it. We'll probably have announcements here in the next month or so. So hang with us. It is a little bit of last minute.
There will be much better qualified speakers than us.
Yeah, much better. Yeah, we're not speaking. Yeah. The other thing is that, as I said earlier, we do, this is a road trip for us. We do go to the camps. And Kieran spoke a lot about getting out and helping the community. And I know, you know, Achieve Internet, we've built some amazing sites. I have some great developers, but there's still only one or two guys on my site that can really, or in my team, that can really go out and influence where Drupal's going. And we find it intimidating at times. So, you know, getting out to the camps and helping people and giving speeches and even just doing QA or whatever it is, we're really trying to push more and more that's contributing at a high level. So, you know, we do encourage you all to help us do that, get out to the camps, and appreciate you all showing up today, of course. So now I want to go to QA, but I also want to know not only about questions about what we spoke about today, but I want to know what we missed, right? We're going to be doing this for the next year, maybe even a few years. What would you like to hear so that we can improve the panel as well? So the question is that there's underemployment or overemployment in Drupal, and are there apprenticeships that are available or training programs available in Drupal? Anybody want to take that?
Sure, I can talk about that. If you look around in some of the educational institutions, you'll probably find that there are courses now being offered. For example, in the Vancouver area, there's a course at like Langara College. We have UBC that's doing some training, SFU's doing some training. Also some local shops are doing training too. One of them's actually set up a school and does quarterly training for Drupal developers to come in. So it's great to see some initiatives that are happening. If you check into your local educational institution in your city, you might find that there's some training that's offered there. Obviously, there's the courses that are happening too. Co-op programs are another thing that we're actually instituting in our company to bring in university students to work with us and to equip and train them. That's a great way for young students to get an opportunity. Internships is another good one too.
More questions? Go ahead, Bart.
I love each of your points, how you have a slide. The last one is talking about differentiating each of them. As a shop, seeking a unique quality or character or distributed marketing, would you just each take a turn and say, this is how we differentiate?
All right, so the question is how do we up here individually differentiate ourselves? I'll start with that. Achieve Internet specializes in enterprise Drupal, but we really focus on integration. We do a lot of Salesforce integration. We do Solar implementations and things that are mainly focused towards clients that are going to be building websites that are 1 million page views or more a month. So we really focus on the tools that they would use and specialize on those, write about it, write case studies, get involved in those modules, make sure that when somebody goes and looks up Salesforce and Drupal, that somewhere they find Achieve Internet involved somehow.
It's a great question, because when it comes down to brass tacks, at the end of the day, all of us probably charge a similar price, so we don't differentiate on rate much. All of us probably have some kind of, marketing tagline that says we do enterprise level Drupal implementations, so we don't really differentiate on the types of services that we offer. The way I would answer that question is how all of us differentiate is our track record. All of us have a track record and processes that only us can speak to. So the way we differ at MediaCurrent is we have a portfolio and a reputation that these guys don't have. All of you have a reputation that precedes you. So differentiate on your reputation. That's the biggest thing. And at MediaCurrent, I'm really big on letting our customers be our biggest advertisers. So this is oftentimes overlooked. When you have a successful project that you complete, it's important that you not only demonstrate that you have a process to complete that project, but you're able to show how that process has added value to the client. And the way you add value, more often than not, is there's universally two things that every customer is looking for. They want to be able to save time and money. So I'd say differentiate by being able to show those things.
For ourselves at ImageX, when we first started out, we were trying to do what Jeff was talking about earlier about being that one-stop shop. We were trying to do absolutely everything for everybody. And it was in 2005 that I decided to drop like 6 services of the company and focus right on down on exactly what it was we were going to do. And at that point in time, being a Drupal shop was a total niche market. But now there's over 1,000 companies that are offering Drupal, so you kind of have to, again, pick your choice. So you've got opportunity of verticals. You can choose like different areas or segmentation of industry, or you could look at technology. So for us, we've looked at verticals, and we've gotten involved a lot in the education space, and we've also looked at technologies, and we've looked at multi-site implementations. So now we're working on things like Portland State University. We're just doing Drupal 7 and implementing a few hundred sites on a multi-site model. So that's the type of thing that is attracting very specific cases. We're doing school districts and that sort also.
We're a full services web. No, we design and build elegant, excellent websites. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Like Glen, we used to kind of be more full service, and like Glen, we've kind of niched out more. When we first got into Drupal, we specifically did pick a niche, and it worked really well. We said there wasn't many kind of big custom, again, enterprise. Hate to use that buzzword, but it's true, because we work with a lot of big media companies, but there was no one doing kind of big theming 3 or 4 years ago. So we did that, and we did it really well. But then we evolved, because you always have to evolve, again, because a lot of people got really good at doing custom theming. Now we really focus on, partnering with, again, these big companies that have teams of developers. So, again, these kind of multi-month, multi-developer, working with a team of developers at the client side to kind of mentor them and bring them through, and really just help them with the architecture. So it's just really kind of the really high-end architecture and development of large CMS projects. And we are just on the development side now. We partner with design agencies, although we do some design internally. Generally speaking, on the projects we work on, a separate design partner, a really high-end company in the design space is brought in to do the design. And that's worked out really well for us.
Yeah, and to Michael's point, I mean, I remember the first time I heard of his firm was after DrupalCon Boston. One of my clients came back, and he was raving about what a great theming shop Treehouse was, and I was pissed because I said, well, we're not. He said, not in my experience. And that really rubbed me the wrong way, and I set out to meet him after that and figure out what they were doing right. And it's funny because, coming back to the whole marketing thing, I mean, he did position himself really well that way because the customer had never seen him theme anything, had never worked with him, but was like already convinced that he was going to be better at it than us. So, I guess I'm really on the hook to answer this question rather specifically since I threw it out there. I went through the things that I said you could specialize based on, and I wanted to be clear that it's not just one dimension. I think it's not that you have to specialize on any of these. In fact, I think you can agree with your strategy not to. You can try to specialize on some things, but not on others. So let me go through the list. So by talent, I think we do try to differentiate ourselves there as really more of an engineering focus. We started in software engineering before Drupal, and so we kind of think we bring a lot of object-oriented programmers and people with sort of the engineering focus to it, more technical, less creative. By industry, I mentioned those before, policy and information things, government, publishing, stuff like that. But we really don't do much differentiation on services and solutions. I mean, we pretty much provide, we provide design, consulting, development, training. Like we'll do the whole spectrum there because we're diversifying, or not diversifying, but specializing and focusing in these other areas. I think that's okay. We do it a lot by geography. We try to keep our clients largely East Coast, DC, New York mainly. And then by size, we've made a concerted effort because we're a larger company that we just figured out we needed to focus on larger organizations. We don't, there's a certain size company or organization we're just not going to work with. And when you put all that together, it doesn't seem like a niche, but to us it's a niche because we've taken the components that we care about and that we'll focus on, we've pulled them all together, and that's it's unique to us.
So it turns out we lied to you. It looks like there's another session here in an hour. Is that right, Andrew?
So version control with Git is in here in a couple minutes. So
Okay.
I gotta close it up.
All right, so sorry, and we're happy we'll go upstairs and sit at a BOF table and keep on answering questions all day, but it looks like it's time for us to wrap up.
Thank you, though.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.